your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome into another edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. It's Locked On Eagles. As always, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Louie DiBiase joining you on this Monday edition of the show. Guys, it's episode 1 of 5 downloaded into your phone when you subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you get your shows, we're available on Apple, on Odyssey, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on Google, you name it. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles, Monday through Friday. And we're on YouTube now as well. All of our daily podcasts are uploaded on our YouTube page, as well as short videos as well, clips that we take from the podcast, but also separate videos that are just alone found on YouTube. So that's why you got to subscribe to both the audio feeds and the video, because when you subscribe to YouTube, you get a little extra bonus coverage of your beloved Philadelphia Eagles. So also, guys, follow us on Twitter, always talking birds, at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE. Coming up on today's edition of the show, it's cut down week. The Eagles have just on Sunday, they were 2 weeks from their first season opener of the 2021 season, and their only season opener, the first game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons. So they're trying to get the roster down to 53. And so with that being said, I thought today would be the perfect opportunity to give you my final 53-man roster predictions, as the Eagles are already making some cuts and they're activating players, some starters, both on offense and defense, maybe a starter long-term, but also a starter guaranteed in the 2021 season. So they released Michael Jacquet, the cornerback, just about 10 minutes ago. So they are busy currently right now getting this thing down to 53. And guys, because of that, it's of course because the season is starting. And with the start of the 2021 season, I want to tell you guys that the Locked On NFL podcast is previewing every team in every division with the help of Odyssey's lineup of NFL experts through September 8th. There are preview episodes on the feed that you can listen to right now. Follow Locked On NFL today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. So the big two moves the Eagles made today as part of getting the roster down to 53 was activating two players on offense and defense that are very important long-term and short-term. I'd say more so long-term on offense and short-term on defense. The Eagles activated second-round pick in 2021, Landon Dickerson, their interior offensive lineman, center, guard, wherever. He has a big role on this team up front for the future. That's why they took him in the second round over some really good talent. And Rodney McLeod, the core backbone of the secondary right now at safety, the longest tenured starter that's not on the defensive line for the Birds, was activated from the PUP list. And so again, these are two extremely important moves for the Eagles. Again, Landon Dickerson long-term and Rodney McLeod short-term, because McLeod, look, they need him in 2021. With the lack of defensive back depth, I mean, it's Rodney McLeod, it's Anthony Harris, it's Darius Slay, it's Steven Nelson. It's those four starting veterans. And then after that, if there's injuries to any of those four guys, it can get bad, because then it's Avonte Maddox. It's who knows at corner, Zach McPherson, Craig James, Michael Jacquet just got cut. At safety, it could be Kevon Wallace, who I'm excited about, but we still haven't really seen him show anything on the field at the NFL level. Marcus Epps, people are really high on him this offseason, but Marcus Epps in the regular season the last 2 years really hasn't done anything overly impressive. So they need Rodney McLeod badly in 2021. And then for Landon Dickerson, again, like I said, I mean, this was a player they took in the second round to be Jason Kelce's replacement. Or if not Jason Kelce's replacement, his presence would give you a reason to then, the flexibility to then move Isaac Seumalo from left guard to center, where he played at center at Oregon State in 2016 when he was the Eagles' third-round draft pick. So Landon Dickerson is very important to the interior of this offensive line long-term. And the Eagles took a big risk on him with all of the leg injuries. His injury history at Alabama was pretty lengthy. This gave us Sidney Jones vibes for sure. Sidney Jones, by the way, traded today to the Seattle Seahawks. So just goes to show how far he has fallen. But Landon Dickerson, it was kind of the same risk, a really high-end player at the college level that only fell in the second round because of injuries. If it wasn't for the injuries, Landon Dickerson, I think, is a top 20 pick. And so the Eagles took that risk again. It didn't work for Sidney Jones, but Sidney Jones at this point was not close to playing when they took him in 2017. He didn't play until week 17 of that season, whereas Dickerson, seeing him already getting activated from the NFI list, that is awesome. That means he's going to get a spot on the 53-man roster, which means the Eagles expect him to be ready to play at least by the halfway point. So that is huge, and you really need him to be good because, again, if he's not, and Jason Kelce retires, that makes things a little bit more difficult. Like, who do you put at center? Between, I guess you have Nate Herbig still, but I mean, we all saw the first snap he had at center against Pittsburgh in week 1 of the preseason this year. And then Isaac Seumalo, you have at left guard. But if Dickerson pans out, then he is your long-term center, or he plays guard and you have the flexibility of having Seumalo change positions. So there's a lot riding on McLeod, obviously, this year on defense, and Dickerson long-term. So getting those two guys back carried on the 53-man roster is a really, really good sign. And those guys are going to take up 2 of the spots to start the season. That wasn't really expected. I would think that both guys would take up a spot on the roster, but the fact that they are means there's 2 less spots for guys that are fighting on the roster bubble. And I'm going to predict who makes that bubble, the 53-man roster, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. In segment 2, I will start with the defensive side, or I should say the offensive side of the football. And then in segment 3, I'll predict the defense and special teams. Guys, before we do that, though, I want to give a shout out to some of our sponsors, and one of them is North One. North One is better banking for small business owners. Serving small business owners is all that they do. They allow you to manage your money from anywhere, wherever you're at home or on the go. Everything you need to manage your business finances, it's at your fingertips. Never step foot in a bank branch again. In addition to the features you'd expect, like mobile check deposits, cash withdrawals, the ability to send and receive ACH, and wire payments, North One is an FDIC insured account that can save you both time and money. North One integrates with the accounting software you already use, saving you hours of manual bookkeeping. And with North One's envelope feature, you can automatically budget and save for things like rent, payroll, taxes, and much more. With North One, you'll never pay overdraft or NSF fees again, saving you hundreds of dollars per month. To get started, visit apply.northone.com/locked. That's apply.northone, North1/locked, LOCKED. North One, business banking made for America. Guys, today's show is also sponsored by betonline.ag. It's that time of year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the 2021 football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Make sure you head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. Be sure to also take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Head over to the website, use the promo code LOCKEDON, again, for a 100% welcome bonus. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, guys, welcome back into this Monday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. It's Locked On Eagles. Louie DiBiase here, predicting my final 53-man roster for the 2021 season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And in segment 2, we are starting with the offensive side of the football. And of course, starting with offense, we got to start with the most important position in football. It is quarterback, and I have the Eagles keeping 3 players. And honestly, it should just be 2. After the Eagles traded for Gardner Minshew, the former Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback, on Saturday, it really should be Jalen Hurts as QB1, Gardner Minshew is QB2. But unfortunately, the Eagles are paying Joe Flacco $4 million guaranteed. And the report was after they traded for Minshew this weekend is that they still really like Flacco on this roster, which just to me is unnecessary. I think Gardner Minshew is a top tier backup. And if both Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew get hurt, it's whatever at that point anyway. So to carry Joe Flacco on the roster is just kind of a waste of a spot. But unfortunately, the Eagles had such a bad contract given to Flacco in free agency, $4 million guaranteed, that you're kind of stuck with him and you know, they're going to keep him on the roster. But Gardner Minshew is so much better than Joe Flacco. And it just, again, shows how bad that contract was, is that they could have made a move like this. And instead they shelled out all this money to a guy that is a complete shell of himself, if you will. So they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, and they like to have a deep quarterback room. It's just the backbone of this team. And so it's going to be Jalen Hurts. It's going to be Gardner Minshew. That's a lot of swag between QB1 and QB2. And then you get to Joe Flacco, who used to be elite, at least for one playoff run, but not anymore. And yet he is far from elite. He is, to me, not even roster worthy, but he is going to make this team. And I think there's going to be those 3 quarterbacks. Now that I thought it was going to be just 2 quarterbacks, Hurts and Flacco, but now with the move to get Gardner Minshew, I know there's reports he's your 3rd quarterback behind Flacco. That's not the case, guys. If Jalen Hurts gets hurt, Gardner Minshew is playing. He is such a better quarterback right now than Joe Flacco. So those are your 3 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, and Joe Flacco. Then at running back, I'm keeping 4 guys. Sorry, Jason Huntley stands, but Huntley is not making this roster. It's going to be Miles Sanders. It's going to be Kenny Gainwell. It's going to be Boston Scott, and it's going to be Jordan Howard. No real surprises there after Kerryon Johnson got waived. It was really between him and Jordan Howard, I think, for that 4th and final spot. Just because Sanders and Scott, those are locks, as is Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell is your Swiss Army knife this year on offense that you're going to use all across the formation. And obviously Boston Scott's a big leader on this team. In between those 2 and Miles Sanders, that's a lot of explosiveness. That's a lot of receiving ability, return ability, a lot of versatility. This is a fun group of 4 running backs. It's the most fun I've had looking at this position for the Birds since 2017. And so not a lot of surprises there. It's going to be Sanders, it's going to be Gainwell, it's going to be Scott, and it's going to be Jordan Howard. Jason Huntley, just to me, not worth stashing on this roster. Maybe if they weren't keeping 3 quarterbacks, but they are. So they're going to keep 4 running backs as they normally do. I don't think this team has really kept 5 running backs for a long time, virtually ever. Okay, let's go to wide receiver. The Eagles are going to keep 6, as they really have done since Andy Reid left in 2012. And it's going to be your 3 starters, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, and Quez Watkins. And then rounding out your bottom 3, it's going to be Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And look, I think it's pathetic that J.J. makes the roster. The guy made 1 play against the Jets, albeit it was a good play. And it was a vintage J.J. play that he used to make at Stanford, draped with a cornerback all over him. And he goes up and just mosses the guy and pulls it from right in front of the corner. He goes over him and pulls that football out of midair. It was a great play, but it was 1 play in 3 preseason games when the guy was playing against 3rd-team defensive backs, and he made 1 play in 3 weeks. And he really he's had an okay summer, but the fact that he's going to make the roster, I think it's going to happen, but I think it's pathetic. And I think that you should just not fall for the J.J. hype again. The dude can't play. There's been 3 summers now where he's been hyped up, right? He looked really good in his rookie preseason, especially against the Baltimore Ravens. And then he did nothing his rookie year. And then last year, everybody was saying, oh, this is the year for a breakout J.J. season, right? Because he looks awesome in the summer. He did worse, I think, in his second year than he did he made less plays last year than he did in 2019. And so now he might make the roster again, and there's a little bit of hype after that Jets game. But let me tell you again, this guy cannot play. And it's going to be a waste to me of a roster spot over either John Hightower or Travis Fulgham. And I think it's going to be Hightower that gets cut. Although Hightower had shown more last year than Arcega-Whiteside has in 2 years. But he's, I think, going to get cut. And I've seen some people debate that it should be J.J. over Travis Fulgham. There's been a lot of talk the last 2 weeks about how bad of a summer Fulgham has had. But to me, Look, I know that Fulgham hasn't had a great camp, and people are disappointed that he didn't kind of turn into the October Fulgham again, and he more so was what you saw down the stretch of the season last year, a guy that was kind of non-existent. But even with that being said, J-Jaw's entire 3-year career with the Eagles has been non-existent. So what Fulgham did in just 1 month last year is way more than what J-Jaw has done to convince me that he should be kept over Fulgham. Outside of Arcega-Whiteside being a second-round pick, there is no reason he should be kept over Fulgham or Hightower. But I think he's going to be. And I think of these guys, because of Smith, Rager, and Watkins, because of their explosiveness, because of Greg Ward's ability to play in the slot, and also his return ability. John Hightower was getting kickoff returns the last 2 weeks, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think he's similar to that top 4. And so I think the Eagles are going to want to keep some bigger bodies at the bottom, but I don't think that's really what their motivation will be. It's because J-Jaw was a second-round pick, handpicked by Jeffrey Lurie, and so for that, he's going to waste a roster spot to me, just like Joe Flacco will. So I'm not happy about it. I don't think it should happen, but I think Arcega-Whiteside will get a spot over Fulgham or Hightower, and I think it's going to be Hightower. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's Fulgham. Not that I think they would cut Fulgham outright, but I think they would maybe look for a trade partner and see, because I think of those 3, Fulgham, Arcega-Whiteside, and Hightower, I think Fulgham would have the most trade value. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe that's what happens and they keep J-Jaw and Hightower, the 2 guys they actually drafted in 2019 and 2020, rather than a guy in Fulgham the team really didn't invest that much in. Let's go to tight end. I think they keep 3. They're going to stash Tyree Jackson away with that back injury, and you have Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, and Richard Rodgers. And then when Zach Ertz raises that trade value in the first, 7 weeks, 8 weeks of the season at the NFL trade deadline, when you move him for a better pick, then you get Tyree Jackson back and your 3 tight ends for the rest of the year, Dallas Goedert, Dallas Goedert, Richard Rodgers, and Tyree Jackson. That's the way I see this timeline working out at the tight end position, but not a whole lot going on here after the Jackson injury. I don't think they're going to trade Zach Ertz now right before the season unless they get a really good deal. I think at this point, you might as well just keep him, help develop Jalen Hurts with Ertz as an asset on the field, a great security blanket. Then Ertz, again, stockpiles that value, bounces back from last year, where right now his value is at an all-time low for his career. Build that back up in the first half of the season, then move him and go forward with, to me, Dallas Goedert, Tyree Jackson, and Richard Rodgers as your 3 tight ends. On the offensive line, this is our last position before we get into defense in segment 3. I have them keeping 9. Your starting lineup is Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Isaac Seumalo at left guard, Jason Kelce at center, Brandon Brooks at right guard, Lane Johnson at right tackle, and then your backups are Andre Dillard, Landon Dickerson, Nate Herbig, and Jack Driscoll. There's been a report this week that teams are calling the Eagles about offensive line depth, surprisingly about linebacker depth as well. We'll get into linebacker in segment 3. That's an interesting position I want to talk about. But offensive line, teams are calling the Eagles because they have a lot of depth there. Again, I just rattled off 9 guys that are really exciting to think about this year. They have a lot of depth up front. And so if you could get a pick for Andre Dillard now, I would say take it. But I think if that trade doesn't go down, as much as Dillard doesn't deserve a roster spot, much like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, that same 2019 class, 2 of their first 3 picks, Miles Sanders was the only one that panned out. But because of the same reasons as J-Jaw, I feel like Andre Dillard does make the team. And also, too, because he's a tackle. And when you look at the backups, you got Dickerson. He's not a guy that would play tackle if there was an injury. Same with Nate Herbig. Jack Driscoll is going to be your only tackle reserve. I don't think the Eagles want to go in that direction. So if they don't get a good deal for Dillard, I think they're definitely going to keep him for, again, him being a first-round pick they traded up for, but also because I think they really want that tackle depth, especially with Jordan Mailata has shown a lot of good things the last year and a half, but he obviously isn't a proven commodity yet. So having Dillard as a backup, I think the Eagles want that luxury, if you can even call Dillard a luxury, but I think they would see it as that potentially. So that's 25 offensive players total. I got to fill this roster with 28 more players on defense and on special teams, and I'll get into that coming up next right here on your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. And guys, does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called Direct TV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before. So you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of that clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with Direct TV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible devices required. Content varies by package. Guys, today is also sponsored by the mouth-watering best damn protein bar on the planet. It's Built Bar, and I wouldn't even consider it a protein bar. It is one, but it tastes to me just like a candy bar, covered in 100% chocolate, soft, easy to chew. Bring it to a movie theater, and I'm not even going to bat an eye. It's that good, and it's so deep when it comes to flavors and healthy alternatives to your everyday snack. 9 delicious flavors: coconut, coconut almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, and salted caramel. And like I said, it's way healthier than a candy bar. There's 17 grams of protein in every bar. There's only 130 calories, and there's only 4 grams of sugar. My go-to, the peanut butter brownie. I could eat like 6 of those things. Obviously not a good idea. Moderation for everything, but peanut butter brownie is the go-to. I know Gino really likes the mint brownie. If you like coconut, again, we got coconut and coconut almond. There is a flavor for everybody, and I can get you 15% off today when you head over to builtbar.com and use our promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your first order at builtbar.com. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Monday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. Louie DiBiase here, wrapping up my final 53-man roster prediction. We have 28 players to go. I predicted the 25-man offensive side of the football in 2021. Now let's go to defense and special teams. We got 28 players here to still make up this final 53. Let's start at defensive end, where I last time had them going a couple weeks ago when I did this exercise. I had them going with 5 defensive ends. But now I thought about it a lot more. And the way they're using the Sam linebacker position as this hybrid roving pass rusher, but also a guy that is in space still playing the traditional linebacker spot, but he's blitzing as well. Because of that guy being a pass rusher a lot more than in previous years under Jim Schwartz, and also because of Milton Williams' versatility. That guy's been playing defensive end the entire preseason for the Eagles, despite being traditionally a defensive tackle at Louisiana Tech when the Eagles picked him this past draft in the 3rd round. So because of the Sam linebacker spot, because of Milton Williams playing on the edge and inside that versatility, I only had the Eagles keep 4 defensive ends: Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, and Ryan Kerrigan. Now, of course, if they were to trade Derek Barnett, I think Teron Jackson could make the roster. I really liked what I saw from the rookie this summer, but I think you're going to want to go heavy at linebacker because of that Sam spot being different this year than years past. I think you're going to want to go heavy in the defensive backfield as well. And I just think you'd rather go heavy at defensive tackle than defensive end right now. I think those top 4, it's top heavy for sure at the edge, but you have Milton Williams still, and you have Jannard Avery at linebacker, who's a former defensive end. Those 2 basically, to me, count as well as defensive ends. So you're technically keeping 6, but 4 traditional defensive ends on the roster. And then you can go 1 heavier at defensive tackle, and that's good because T.Y. McGill deserves to make this team. He has had a really good preseason, and he flashes, I feel like, each summer. I feel like he definitely deserves to make this 53. It's going to be Fletcher Cox. It's going to be Javon Hargrave. It's going to be Milton Williams, Hassan Ridgeway, and T.Y. McGill. That is your 5, and that is your 9 total defensive linemen. And then they go heavier at linebacker because, again, they have different roles. So you have your traditional Mike and Will spot, right? That's going to be made up of Eric Wilson, Alex Singleton, Davian Taylor, TJ Edwards, right? Those 4 guys. And then, because again, that Sam spot is different now, instead of keeping Sean Bradley on this team, even though I really like Sean Bradley and he flashed last year in the regular season and this summer, I think they're going to prefer to keep Jannard Avery for 1 as a lock, I think. And then your 6th final linebacker is rookie Patrick Johnson. Because again, instead of keeping Sean Bradley, who's more of a backup for Wilson and Singleton, and he's behind Davian Taylor and TJ Edwards, you already have 4 of those kind of linebackers. You're going to want a backup for Jannard Avery, right? That Sam spot that can do more of the pass rushing stuff. And Patrick Johnson was that coming out of college. So to me, Patrick Johnson has that new niche that Sean Bradley wouldn't be used for, I don't think. I mean, they could use, I think Davian Taylor has the explosive ability and the hard-hitting style that he could also be a guy that I would love to see them blitzing through the A gap and B gap and on the edge. I think Davian Taylor could fit that Sam, Jannard Avery spot really well, especially with the way that guy comes downhill. But I do think they're going to want to keep somebody like Patrick Johnson there instead of, a Sean Bradley, when Sean Bradley would be buried, I think, behind Davian Taylor and TJ Edwards, and those guys are behind Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton. Not to mention the Eagles don't use that many linebackers anyway on the field. So I think Patrick Johnson, surprisingly so, makes the team over Sean Bradley, and those are your 6 linebackers. And then we have 10 defensive backs to keep. I don't think after Michael Jacquet got cut today, rightfully so, thank God, there is not 6 corners that are worth being kept. And I could argue there's not 5. But here are the 5 corners I kept on this roster on the final 53. It's Darius Slay, it's Steven Nelson, it's Avonte Maddox. Those are your starting 3. And then it's Zech McPherson and Josiah Scott. So McPherson is your top backup on the boundary on the outside, and Josiah Scott, he makes the team over Craig James. Craig James could be that 6th corner. Maybe they go lighter at safety, or maybe they go lighter, I don't know, at tight end, or the issue is J.J. is going to make the team at Flacco. So they've got to go light somewhere. And I feel like corner is the spot to do it because you're screwed anyway if Slay or Nelson get hurt. Just keep players at other positions, because keeping Craig James, he's not going to save you. If one of these guys get hurt, go sign somebody off the street that can do just as good as Craig James. Scott at least has that inside-outside versatility. You want a backup for Maddox in the slot, and I feel like that can be Josiah Scott. So that's why he makes the team over Craig James. So those are your 5. I just don't think there's 6 guys that are worth keeping at cornerback. And then at safety, we keep 5 as well. It's Anthony Harris. It's Rodney McLeod, who again was activated from the PUP today. It's Kevon Wallace. It's Marcus Epps. And it's Andrew Adams. Those are your 5 safeties. And then, of course, your special teams top 3, Jake Elliott, Ricky Lovato, and your punter, Aaron Sipos. So that is your final 53, guys. I'm going to post this picture in picture form on our Twitter page tomorrow night. So again, follow us at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase, LOE. And again, guys, be sure to subscribe to the podcast Monday through Friday, especially with the season starting. We are going to be hammering content on the podcast feed and on our YouTube page as well. Subscribe wherever you get the podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube page, and also make sure to, again, follow us on Twitter. We're posting stuff on Fox 43 throughout the year. I cannot wait for the regular season to get going. And guys, we are less than 2 weeks away from football, from Philadelphia Eagles football that actually matters. Let's do it. We got you covered right here on Locked On Eagles. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening, and let's go Birds.